Alright, at the carport garage today, messing with the, we're going to work on the Camaro, but we're messing with the Trans Am right now. We got new tires on it. I put the base timing at 34, it was at 30. We were pulling no timing up to 5 pounds of boost, then 6 pounds. We were pulling a pound of timing. So 11 pounds is pulling 6 degrees, so it's at like 24, 23 degrees timing. Now it's at 34 and it's pulling a half a degree of timing per pound of boost, so it would be at like 31 degrees of timing, 11 pounds of boost. 3, about 31. So, but I had put a manual steering rack in it. It needs an alignment. I'm gonna schedule that Thursday. I'm gonna be off Thursday and Friday so we can get ready for the races. But right now I'm just gonna take it for a ride and see if there's any play in the steering wheel, because before there was a lot of play in it, and the steering box was just wore out, and Chris's old rack joint was wore out, so put a new rack joint on it and a manual steering box. So see how it drives now. Plus I want to drive it and park it and check for axle leaks, because I put some of that stuff on the axles just setting it didn't leak, but we'll drive it then park it and see if it leaks. But I clean the rims out real good, so you'd be able to look in there and see if it was leaking, and that stuff's bright red. It ain't leaking, it ain't leaked none while it was setting. But we'll drive it and then see if it leaks. I don't think it will. I think I got that fixed. Alright, there's a little play in the steering wheel, but not much. But I mean, this thing with the new timing table, it's an animal. Taking Mom for a ride. I barely even got on it and scared her to death. What do you think about it, Mom?
It's fine. You would have painted some wings on it.
Yeah, it's a new animal. I mean, it's scary to hit it on the road. That's why I didn't want to videotape it, and I didn't grab the GoPro. Alright, so we put that one in the garage. We're going to do a oil feed line, because I don't know if y'all watched my other videos. The ground wire, I ground it out on the alternator, burn a hole in the oil feed line. It's the second time that's happened. The first time I thought it was just where it was riding on the block, so I wire loomed it in that area. But I didn't wire loom it in the area where the ground wire strap was laying on it, and it burned a hole in it again. So I figured out what it was doing this time. So we took that off. We don't need it. Solid motor mounts don't really need that ground strap. Now I don't know if you guys could hear me or not. I wonder if that timing rip's too aggressive, because that thing is scary fast now. I was barely even getting on it and scaring Mom to death. And I ain't gonna lie, it scared me too. I mean, because it went. And it's still just on 10, 11 pounds. Before it was a dog, like in lower gear with not much RPM. It ain't a dog now. It goes now. As soon as you barely even hit the throttle, it goes. Wow. I'm excited to see what this one's going to run now that it'll get off the line. But it's a little more blow-by than I like. I think during winter we probably need to pull it out, hone it, put some new bearings and rings in it, and then get a pump to pump the oil out, because it's still smoking. Even when it was smoking, we had the drain line. It wasn't going downhill much, and it was going over there. And I thought maybe I'll put it downhill more, and that's downhill good. It's still smoking. I don't know if it's just they sent us a bad turbo, or if we just need a pump to pump that oil out of there. Because a lot of people, they'll put their turbo so low it can't gravity feed, and they'll put a pump on it to pump the oil out of it back to the oil pan. But anyway, we're gonna pull it in, cover it up, and we're going to put the ICT Billet alternator passenger side head on that one and change the oil feed line. Alright, I ordered this from Summit, but it's the ICT Billet. I'm opening it for the first time. Wine vouchers. I don't know why it's in those. Oh, and it's a box in a box. Thought I'd know that. These are going to be our wastegate downpipes, so. And hopefully there's enough there to do Christopher's too. So, well, let's open another box. All right, let's try this again. Made in America. Made in America. Oh, I didn't cut through it all the way. What's in the box? What's in the box? Zoom it out a little. Ta-da! Don't ask me how any of this goes on, but we're gonna figure it out. Alright. Got a bracket, couple brackets, some spacers, some bolts, and a pulley, and idler arm. Ta-da! Let's get in the directions because we're gonna need those. Waha! Picture instructions. I like picture instructions, but I had to take the belt off. Tighten that 15 millimeter, boom, slide the belt off, and then this has to come off too. There's just 2 bolts holding it on. 15 millimeter also. And this is the ICT low mount alternator. You can run it different ways. I got both pulleys. If you run it this way, you got to have the groove pulley, but if you have a power steering pump, you have to run the smooth pulley, I think. But either way, I got both of them. But we got to take that off too, but it's got 2 bolts top and down there at the bottom that hold the whole bracket and alternator and everything. But we got to take that off, and we got to unplug a line here and unscrew the main power line in the back. But I'm gonna unhook the battery before we do that. And while that's off, well, I can do the oil feed later. We'll go ahead and do this first. I think we can go ahead and do most of this bracket though. We'll mess with that first. All right, took that out like I said I was going to. Took the belt out and 2 bolts here. Took this out. And look at the bottom of that thing, it's coated in oil. That's the 145 amp truck alternator. I don't know if it's going to fit that. If not, we'll buy another alternator. But yeah, so this kit's supposed to be used with power steering. Look at that frayed line. When I had my hand in there, I'm hooking the wires from the back of the alternator. It got me, but anyway. So we will have to put this back on, just the bracket, to use the pulley, and a shorter belt than what they recommend. Not sure what size belt we're going to need. It'd be amazing if this one fits, but we'll see what happens. Alright, so this picture here shows this piece like this with these type of screws that fit down in the bevel, yeah, whatever they're called. Anyway, it looks like they go to the 3 head bolts, the top 2 and the bottom left. So let's go ahead and it shows using these small spacers in between there. So we'll go ahead and put that on like it says. Another kind of neat thing here is it tells you how long these bolts are. There's 2 140 millimeter bolts. There's 4 100 millimeter bolts, and then 3 40 millimeter bolts, and a ruler on the side. I just noticed that. Inches, why they got inches, I don't know, because it's all in millimeter. But yeah, so you can tell which one's which. These are the hundreds, and this is the 140, and these are the 40. You can tell just by looking at them. But anyway, that's going to go on the head. Those 3 screws and these spacers behind it. That's going to go to that head bolt, and uh-oh, I got to clean that one out. It's got dirt in it somehow. Alright, my trusty little dental pick. And some Carburetor cleaner with the nozzle on it. I think I got her clean. It's got to be clean all the way up in there because these got to set flush apparently, because that's why they're made that way. But I think we got her. Alright, I started that bottom one first with the washer behind it. Started this one with the washer behind it. And then lastly that one. And we'll take the Allen wrench and tighten them up. Alright, there we go. It's all tightened up. They're all nice and flush. Nothing moves. Sweet deal. Alright, so picture number 2 shows this like this. And 200mm bolts going through the bottom with some of the longer spacers. All 4 of these. I guess we don't put these in yet. It only shows them 2 bolts. Alright, so we'll put them 2 bolts, and it threads into this bracket, the bracket we put on there and down there. So just to the bottom right of those top 2 bolts we put in, that bracket's threaded, the one we just put in. We'll thread those in. Alright, so one thing I am going to have to change, because that goes straight through there. I'm going to have to put a 90 barb in here and run this straight to it. So I'm going to take that off and the water's going to come out. Alright, so it wants this spacer here and this spacer here, but now those ain't going to stay there. Yeah, they're not just going to hang out there. So I went ahead and used the 100mm bolts to hold them there, and then I'll go ahead and tighten these other 2 bolts, and that'll cinch all that up, and then I can take these back out because I think something else has to go through there. Alright, so I tightened them bottom 2 thinking it would hold these tight enough, but it did not. So I don't know, maybe we can put those in later. I'll just leave those bolts in it for, well, we're going to need those bolts. So now it shows those other 200mm bolts that I'm using for this to hold these in here to put the alternator on with these spacers on the back and these top 2 bolt holes. Now here's the real question. Is that 145 amp alternator going to fit? Let's see. So the big truck alternator does fit. I mean, it'll bolt up. It does hit right there a little. The bad thing about it, where it hits at, is where the plug-in's at. So that ain't going to work. I've never done this before, but I'm going to see if I can't take these bolts out and just clock the back of this. I don't know if that'll work or not. We'll see. So it wants to clock around. These ears are hitting it and won't let it go any further. So that pulley's going to have to come off so I can lift up on it more to turn it around. And there we go. A pop wrench, a rag, and an impact. And the nut's off. Now we'll have to get a puller to pull that off. Well, again, never took one of these apart before. The pulley actually slid right off. So hopefully now we can clock it. Let's flip it over and see. And ta-da, let us clock it. Now whether it still works or not, I don't know. But yeah, we got it clocked now. So put it back together the way we took it apart. It's just these 4 corner bolts. And actually some of them were already loose. But we'll put those back in there. Put it on now and see what we got. Also, so I needed the 100mm bolts to put the alternator on. So I put these longer, what were they, 140mm bolts through here to hold these. I'm pretty sure those are going to go in there anyway. Has to, because that's the only bolts left. There's stuff that goes here first. But yeah, let's put the alternator on. Alright, that's going to work. There's actually space between there now. When this plastic piece is higher, when it was clocked over there, it was actually hitting it. kind of curious if I should clock it one more time, because this is going to be pretty close to my fitting. Yeah, I think that's going to work. We'll just put one of them rubber caps on here. Yep, and as I thought, them longer bolts are going to go through them sleeves that they wanted you to put in up here, but there ain't no way those will stay in by themselves. So I had the 100mm bolts holding them. Now I got the bolts that they go in there holding them, but they actually should have included that. You think when I tighten these bolts up it would have tightened it up enough to hold those in, but it don't. But you can reach under there. But anyway, long bolt with a washer and this big arm on the bottom. We'll go ahead and put that one on. So on this tensioner, it goes on like this, and this divot here has to go in that hole right there. Alright, that's on. It's in the hole back here, like I said. And then the way you do these ones, you use the end of your ratchet, stick in that hole, and then you turn it. It's supposed to move, but it's really tight. Oh, it's really tight. I don't know, I'll mess with that more. You're supposed to be able to, maybe I got that too tight. I don't know, maybe got to loosen that some. I don't know. Let's go ahead and put this on. Also, yeah, like I said, these flop around, so you do have to hold on to those when you put that big bolt through there. But this top pulley, it goes on like that, and then that washer, that little spacer, goes behind it like that. Yeah, it goes on like that, and that'll go on washer bolt. Alright, there we go. It's all together. And then I did loosen that bolt a little and that let this move. But let's put this bracket back on, just because we don't have the power steering to loop up. And it's got to loop up, pretty sure. I don't think we'd hit the water pump enough if we didn't put that back in there, that bracket for the alternator. Oy. This thing right here, so it can loop back up and then come across. I don't know, we'll see. Let's put that other belt on and see what it looks like. So the belt I had on it for the low mount ICT alternator down there, with it just on the crank pulling up here, it wasn't even long enough. So I found the belt off my Gen 2 LT1. That might work once I put that on over there. See, you know what? That probably is enough contact on the water pump. But I'm going to put that pulley on over here just to kind of make it come back up like the power steering, which power steering comes way up here and it's only down there, but I think it'll help with hitting the water pump. Well, look at that. That belt's going to work. But what am I going to do with this is the question. I have to figure something out for that. So what I'm going to do on this is I'm going to zip tie that right there, and then clock this straight up, this straight up, and get a 90 right there. That's the only way it's going to work, I think. So this is the wire that goes to the stud on the back of the alternator. So need to shorten that. And then this is the one that goes to the plug-in. There's just one wire in there, so I need to make that longer. And we'll just bring it over with these and zip tie them all to this fuel rail. Just need to shorten the one wire, lengthen the other wire, I got my eBay crimper tool for the stud, and then I'll just use those melt things that join the wires together for the trigger wire for the alternator. And then I'll get under the car and change the oil feed line, and then we're going to put both wastegate springs in there, and we're going to turn this thing all the way up and see what it's going to do. All right, a 10-pound spring and a 3-pound spring for a total of 13, which, calculating off the other springs I put on my car, this should give us 9 to 15 pounds of boost. And I doubt that little turbo will go up to 15 pounds. New oil line ran. Alternator wire ran. Both alternator wires ran. Shorten that one, lengthen that one. And I decided just to screw that straight into that and go straight over. Plenty of room with the cowl. And I did like that to run that through there, zip tie it there and loop it up, but I am going to get a 90 so I can lay that flat. Just have a 90 right there. It's charging. I don't know if y'all noticed or not, but when it was running, this belt was flopping around quite a bit. So I marked as high as the pulley would go up. I put the belt back on. As you can see, the pulley's almost all the way up. So I need to get a little bit shorter belt. Alright, went to the parts store, measured the belt, the one I had on it. See, with the belt off, it's in the same spot. That mark. I just ain't gonna cut it. There needs to be more tension there. It needs to be down further. So my belt was 64 inches. I tried a 62 and it came to right there. Everything else was on. It came to right there with the pulley all the way down, tensioner all the way down. So I think a 63 or a 63 and a half would be perfect. And also, if you guys do it like I did it, and you run a 4.8 or a 5.3, that bolt hole right there, you have to drill for that. And I don't even know if anybody's going to do it the way I've done it with that pulley there. And probably don't even need that pulley. I just put it there because it gives it a, it gives more belt to rub on the water pump, which I like. All right, just came from Advance over there, and they didn't have a 63 or a 63 and a half. I think either one of them would work, but went ahead and ordered the 63 and a half just to be sure, because the 62 inch, like an inch of going on top of the alternator, and after it wrapped around the alternator, it would have took some of that away. So I think a 63 and a half would be perfect. So I just ordered one of those. Time to go get some McDonald's. Now, if you have the power steering on your vehicle, it'll tell you what belt to use. So you just have to, if you do like what I'm doing without the power steering, you just have to figure out what size you need.